Hi, my name is Peter Larkum, and this is Mentality Meets. So Mentality Meets is on our 4th day of Mental Health Awareness Week, and we have been chatting with lots of different people, lots of different settings, and today we're going to be spending some time with Laura Hearn. This is Mentality Meets.
What is one thing that you are looking forward to this bank holiday weekend?
Good shout.
Even in lockdown.
Okay,
Or
so
not lockdown.
what's your name? Where in the world are you? And one thing you are looking forward to this weekend. So stick it down in the chat bar. Let's try and figure out who we've got in the room today. So we have got Andy Bishop in Southampton, bank holiday war movies, amazing. Dave in my bedroom. I'm looking forward to legitimizing daytime drinking this weekend. But of course, it's a bank holiday weekend. We need to have a barbecue and drinking. Why not? Oh, we need to burn as well. Don't forget to burn this weekend. This is the National Weekend of Burning. Okay. Gillian from Winchester. Hi, welcome. Watching lots of telly over the weekend. Andy in Oldbourne. Marlborough. Ed in Salton, Oxfordshire. Bank holiday G&Ts, of course. Chris from Richmond. Looking forward to running, and then food and beer. There's a lot of kind of beer and alcohol going on. Dave, I blame you for this chat thread at the moment. Wiring in a new pump for my pond.
That's the winner. That's the winner.
Who else? We've got Olivia in Winchester says going on walks, trying to sell my house as Kay in London. Jane from Box looks forward to walking the dog again. I have a feeling that's a pretty much daily occurrence, isn't it? And Natalie in Brazil. Wow, Brazil, we've gone international.
Awesome.
Laura, we're international. I like it.
Wow, hi Natalia.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's true that Natalia's from Brazil, but you know what? I'm taking it. I'm accepting it as truth. Looking forward to early Christmas this year. Are we just going for Christmas this bank holiday weekend? Why not? I sang a "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" to my cleaner this morning, who came round, and I haven't seen her for 8 weeks. She was a little bit disappointed by this. Kat, again, Brazil. Looking for coffee on a sunny balcony. And again, more Brazil. Hi, welcome. Cooking vegan food. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. And thanks for coming in all the way from Brazil. So thank you. Really appreciate it. Laura, can you please just give us a little bit of an introduction to you and kind of your journey, I suppose, in coming to where you are now, what you're doing, and what for you is your passion in the world?
Oh my gosh, they're big questions. Okay, a little bit of a rundown. So my day job is I'm a producer for BBC Television News, and that's pretty interesting. I get to meet lots of different people, all walks of life. So I've been doing that for about sort of 15 years. But aside that, my own journey would be around my recovery from my eating disorder, which kind of has run parallel alongside every other aspect of my life, I guess. And for a lot of my life, over half of my life, it was really the only life I lived, I guess. I was very fortunate. I couldn't get help really I needed in the UK, either privately or in the NHS, and was hugely indebted to my family. My mum particularly sort of sold her house to pay for me to go to America for 8 months, where I spent time there really connecting, healing from the inside, a cliche, but going through a lot of processing a lot of things, and came back and moved back to London in 2012, and sort of my second half of my recovery, I suppose, has been learning how to navigate living in the real world, I guess, and using the tools that I learned in America to help me to cope in real life. Really, life was, I didn't really know how to live in the world or have relationships or have boundaries or to get my needs met or even to speak or have the confidence to sort of look after myself, I guess. So I went back to work, and that's been great for my confidence. And then one thing after another, I sort of set up Jiggsy, my sort of platform where I share other people's stories through artwork. And off the back of that, I got asked to do some interviews and blogs, and here I am, part of the Speakers Collective and other places, and connecting with lots of lovely people like yourself, really. I guess so, yeah.
Thanks. I like the fact you say lovely people like me.
Yeah, of course. All
I
of us
don't know whether this is a true thing, but I'm going to accept it. I'm going to acknowledge that.
accept it.
And thank you for kind of that introduction to the raw reality, I suppose, of the history that you've had and the journey that you've been through. And I just want to kind of pick up on what you just said about kind of when you had finished your time over in America and getting the therapy and the counselling and the support that you needed, and kind of coming back to London. You said it was kind of the beginning of the second part of your life, and just trying to navigate your new normal. And the reason why I want to kind of tap into that is because at the moment, a lot of people are trying to navigate this new normal. And I suppose kind of it's what I'm hoping through these mentality meets is to glean some, I want to say expertise. I want to say the stories that I've been hearing around people's recovery process is that you have managed to find tools that have helped you cope and, like you say, explore difficult times and get through difficult times. And I suppose there's a part of me that wants to learn, how do I do that? Having never been in this situation before, I have no tools, no resources in my belt to be able to say, oh, this is what you do when you're struggling. And I'm talking to people who have never really experienced their mental health before, who are literally feeling like they're up the creek,
lost,
and don't quite know what to do. And I would love to just ask, in the context of your second start, your restart, coming back from 2012, what have you found to be some really helpful, healthy coping mechanisms and ways to help you navigate at this time?
God, it's a big one, because I think I don't really like that word experts. I'm always trying to, they always ask, can you find an expert on this, an expert on that? And I think, what makes someone an expert? Like, you might be a bit knowledgeable in a particular area or a specialist, but I'm no expert. The only thing I really know about is myself, I guess. I don't know what works for you or works for the next person. So I can only really speak around my behavior, but around my sort of experience. But it's also very fluid. Like, some things on one day will work and some things won't. And some days I just have to accept I'm not having a good day, or some days are better. And there is, honestly, I can't tell you sometimes no rhyme or reason as to how I'm functioning on a particular day. But there are some basic fundamentals, I guess, that keep me more grounded, and always been nature. I'm definitely not a city person. So the one thing that lockdown is, I've been grateful for, to be honest, is actually not going into the city or being surrounded by buildings and concrete. I'm happiest when I'm in a pair of wellies in a field with some dogs or horses or countryside. That always is like my escapism, where I feel a bit more centered, because I feel like there's something bigger than me. Like, things are always changing, like nature isn't perfect. And very much in my eating disorder, I was like very rigid and things had to be controlled and perfect. And I always look around and just think, well, things are just, there's no flower. I know it sounds pathetic, but there's no flower the same or whatever. And I talked about this with someone else who was really struggling around rigidity the other day. So I've always like being in nature. I think I still journal quite a lot. That was one tool they always told me in the States, like, write your thoughts out. I have kind of practiced a dialogue in my own head instead of that sort of negating chatter that I had from eating disorder. I can talk back to it a lot better. I know that I don't have to act on my thinking, and that, one thought, I can't stop the first thought, but I am in control of the next, the third, the fourth. And often I've been guilty of allowing one thought to turn into, like a mountain before I know I'm in a crisis situation. I think having some people around me who check on me and pull me up, and my recovery has been, it's linear. It goes up and down, and one thing that I struggle with is foresight, which I would like to think I would like to get a bit better at, but it's always hindsight. I mean, you would if you could, right? But sometimes I can go, and I know we talked a little bit before we came on here about sort of keeping busy and creating lists, and I am often sort of I worry about, I have a lot of need to sort of make myself a bit busy when I feel like I'm not being productive, as it were. So I take on things, and then suddenly I'm in a state of like, oh, I feel overwhelmed. And then I hit a wall, and I only know about it when, you know, a couple of weeks down the line or months down the line, and someone says, are you okay? And then I have to think, oh, maybe that self-evaluation was lacking somewhere. But I'm a hell of a lot better, you know, about it than I, you know, I was. Otherwise I wouldn't be here, and I'm very grateful. But so I think having people check on you, but then also being vulnerable enough to be willing to accept that. I was often very defensive if someone asked me and checked on me. Still can at times, but I've noticed in the last year particularly that that's not really the best way to go about going forwards or getting better. So yeah, here are a few things.
Amazing. Oh, there's so many kind of like bits I want to kind of dig into in that. And one of the things that's just come out is about that practicing dialogue. Can you just kind of unpick that phrase a little bit? When you kind of talk about practicing dialogue, how do you do that? How does that work?
Yeah, so this is something that I was taught by, I guess she's called my mentor now, Carolyn in America. And she would call, I mean, you don't have to have an eating disorder to practice it, but she would refer to it as your healthy self and your eating disordered self. So whether it's, you know, your, whatever your disordered self is, it was never about, for me, healing was never about sort of thinking that I was one or the other, that I was my healthy self or my eating disorder self. But by the time I went into treatment, my eating disorder was very much in control. It was the one talking to me or listening to me. But eventually that balance shifted. I guess it's a bit like a seesaw. And as they strengthened my healthy self and I processed the grief and trauma things, the seesaw became more balanced. And then it came to a different tipping point, I guess, or like a pair of scales, I guess, where I could talk back to my healthy self. So it would be very much literally a dialogue. We would write out healthy self, and I would, or eating disorder self, and I'd have a thought. I don't know what the thought is. You know, I wasn't good enough at work, or I didn't get the validation from my editor that I needed, or I need to go and run, or not eat that, or whatever. And then I'd write it out, and I'd be like, okay, so what would I say to someone I really loved? Would I tell them that? Or it was a conversation I had. There was very different techniques, but I would literally write it out but I would always end up on the healthy self. I would never allow the eating disorder self to have the last word, I guess. So
no, that's really helpful. That's really helpful. Because another phrase which you were just kind of talking about is that rigidity. And when life becomes chaotic, that desire, and I okay, this is going to be a question out to everyone else, because I don't think it's just Lauren. I definitely don't think I'm the only one either. But when life is chaotic out there, what are the behaviors that you engage with that try and make you regain control? And the way I explain this in a training course is obsessive compulsive tendencies. Okay, so not the things that you have to do, but the things that you do because it makes you happy on the inside. Okay, making sure the towels are nice and neat on the towel rail, or the shoes are nice and neat on the shoe rack, or the way you make your bed. What is the behavior that is slightly controlling that makes you happy? The unloading your shopping, making sure the tins face the front, stuff like that. So give me some ideas.
It's a good question, actually, because just interesting.
What's the behavior you do? Sorry, go on.
No, it's interesting actually, because one of the things that they did in the treatment centre, it wasn't all about the food. There's in fact, my mentor wrote a book saying it is about the food and it's not about the food, because actually your relationship with life is totally parallel to how my relationship was with food. So within my particular eating disorder, I was very rigid, very specific, sizing, timing, everything, and that also echoed in how I was around OCD behaviours, washing hands, folding my clothes up, feeling like everything needed to be ordered. So part of the thing was, I had several goals each week. And one of them was, Laura, I just want you to go to bed. When you go to bed, just throw your clothes on the floor. I want you to put some towels on the floor. Just like, don't make your bed. And at the time I was like, what are you on about? How is this remotely going to help me with my food? And I found when I was asked to do it, I was really resistant. I was like, no, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. That's messy. That's lazy. But actually, it was all about trying to loosen that tight coil that I was, into knowing that, so what? Like, what's going to happen? Like, I needed to be less rigid in all my behavior. And that was, yeah, I mean, I'm a lot more like just go with the flow. There was no spontaneity within me. I needed to plan for things. So something, you know, this lockdown would have been a nightmare for me. I would have been like, well, I need to know an end date. What am I going to do? Creating more lists. I couldn't live in the moment. I was either in the past or in the future, like not at all remotely connected with today or who was around me today.
Oh, alrighty. So we've only got 2 responses from that question, which I think is a little bit kind of poor. There must be other things that people do, not because they have to, but because they feel like they need to. So we've got cleaning, we've got cooking, cleaning the kitchen to perfection. I like the added to perfection on that, Olivia. So well done. Swearing, Dave, brilliant. But let's just kind of think this through. So let's take your bookshelves. Are you the kind of person who has to order your books height to one side, fatness to thinnest? Are you an alphabeticalized? Are you colorized? Are you what? Sudoku from Gillian. Cheese. Cheese
Chess,
from
I
Dave.
think.
Cheese.
I think it's chess,
Chess. You see, I went straight for cheese. Cheese for me is.
That would be interesting.
It's kind of giving away internal kind of desires right now. Chess would be another word. Crosswords would be another word. Think about your wardrobe. Do all your hangers have to face the same way, or can you kind of switch things around? The spice shelf and the fridge being stacked appropriately. Dave, are you still chuckling away at my cheese statement? I've just got Dave. I don't know whether you can see Dave. If you can see Dave, we did this activity with Lauren yesterday. Can you just point to where Dave is on your screen? So for me, he's down here. So where's Dave? Dave Chorner, if you can see Dave Chorner. I've just got Dave Chorner with a shaking camera going on. So that's just brilliant. Anyway, I digress. So stepping away from any chaos and go for a walk or a run in nature, that's a great thing to do. And so, I just, brilliant. But Laura, kind of the other thing that we were talking about in our little chat earlier was about kind of with that rigidity comes the need to busy ourselves. Because and you were talking about kind of writing lists as well and kind of needing to get through your lists. And my wife is a list writer, and she just gives me hundreds of tasks that I have to do because she has to let me know what's going on in her head and know that it's going to get done. Otherwise, kind of she just feels in chaos all the time. Whereas I'm quite happy to just go with the flow on things. But I suppose kind of the question that I have in this is there a way that busyness actually stops us from the self-assessment process? Do we try and busy ourselves to a point of distraction, which then stops us from being able to self-evaluate and say, right, what is going on, and how do I navigate this, or how do I manage this to the best of my ability? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think busyness, creating this is an avoidance tactic, just like, you know, buying clothes, doing online shopping, buying things that you don't need to do. It's all a form of, I guess, escapism from what's really going on inside. And I can be guilty of that at times. And then I feel overwhelmed. Then I feel anxious. There's a pattern. I busy myself. I think, oh God, I've got so much to do. How am I going to get through this? Then I feel anxious. And then you know, it can affect your recovery if you're not keep yourself in check. So I think it's a fine balance between, you know, I like, my characteristics will always be the same. I like to do things. I like to achieve. I like learning. But that can also push me to some not so healthy behaviours, which when I was severely in my eating disorder took me to a whole different level. And I guess the whole rigidity and control is also about bringing it back to having a balance. And I'm not really that happy person. I mean, you can't be in, it's all about, you know, can you be in the world? And so it all affects each other. So if I'm really controlling, that's quite difficult to be in relationships with. I'm, you know, a pretty miserable person. I often used to walk around with like a resting bitch face when I was really ill, because I just like wore the whole thing on my face. And so I think everything is intertwined: rigidity, finding balance, being controlling, being able to make yourself busy. I have a person I know who's really good at creating busyness for themselves, and actually I think it's a really unhealthy behavior that they demonstrate. And I think coming with that, you just need to have some people that really are willing to call you out, whether you like it or not.
Because that's an interesting process. So we often kind of talk about asking for help, and me being able to have the self-realization, the confidence, and the deep enough relationship with somebody else to ask for help. So for me to be able to say, Laura, I'm really struggling at the moment, can you help? And you were saying that if only we had more foresight, if only we could see ourselves kind of slipping down that slope, that we then went, oh, I need help. But often you don't really realize that you're slipping until you find yourself almost in that hole. And so what I want to ask is, when people are struggling with their mental health, do you need, and that's kind of probably too personal to do you, but do we need somebody else to check in with us? Do we need them to make the first move? So would you need Pete Larkum to say, Laura, are you okay? Hey, I'm just checking in. Let's be real. Let's be honest. How's life?
I mean, that would be that kind of idea would be great, but in every relationship, it's a two-way street. So you could offer that, but unless I'm willing to accept it, maybe not like it, be willing to be vulnerable with you and say, actually, I'm not doing so well. It's kind of, you have to be met in the middle. So and for many times, if everyone goes through a different process and journey in their recovery, and at times up and down, I would have it'd been nice to have someone check on me, but I wouldn't have wanted to engage in it because I'd have felt sort of shame or embarrassment that I should be okay, that I should be fine, or actually I'd have been like, I don't know what you're on about, I'm absolutely fine. But then I have a lot more willingness to accept and be vulnerable to even people who are my nearest and dearest, who are kind enough to check in. And actually, I kind of practice this myself. If someone says, are you okay? I generally, like most people, they might say, yeah, fine, especially if you don't know them too well. But I always, say, are you really, like, ask, there is a whole thing like ask twice, because just asking twice actually kind of means that you're not just willing to pay lip service. And it's like what I talk about when I talk about mental health in the workplace. We have a tea bar in the newsroom, and the amount of times you walk past and you go, hiya, how are you? You right? And before you know it, you've walked off without hearing their reply, because it's just a dialogue we repeat, And so I really tried. We had a bit of a sad incident last year, and I thought, right, what can I do? But I just thought, actually, when I go to that tea bar, because I meet hundreds of people every day at the tea bar as we're going through the newsroom, actually just sort of say, how are you, and sort of stop without walking off with my cup of tea, and actually wait to see if how they are. And I think there is something in really checking in on someone, but actually listening, or not just paying lip service.
No, I think that's so true. I can remember it was actually at an event, and I was talking to Johnny Benjamin. And he said, Pete, how are you? And I said, yeah, no, I'm fine. And then he asked me the second time. I said, yeah, no, I was doing all right. And it wasn't until he asked me the third time. So either he wasn't listening, or that third time was the time where I stopped. And I was like, how am I?
Yeah.
Because and I think that's so true. And I mean, Dave just put kind of, do you really know when you're in that moment of not doing well? Do you really know? And so even if someone were to kind of say, hey, how are you doing? Would you even have that recognition within yourself?
Yeah, I do now. I think, yeah, it would have been a long time I didn't. But yeah, I know my heart's of hearts, whether I'm doing well or not.
No,
I'm not talking about anything when I'm feeling anxious or just low mood, or I've got too much on, or I would say nine times out of 10 I have that self-awareness now. Yeah.
I suppose kind of in that conversation around kind of trying to glean the expertise, and let's kind of miss that language, but it is something which I am beginning to recognize in a lot of people that I now know who have lived experience of mental health illnesses, is that they are much more aware of the slippery slope. They're much more aware of when things are beginning to struggle. Not always. So it's not an absolute. But I suppose kind of quick question out to the audience. We've got 3 minutes before the end of our time, which is, Okay, question number one. Do you know someone who may be struggling with their mental health? Okay, question number one. Do you know someone who may be struggling with their mental health? Quick yes or no, kind of on the chat. Because the second question is,
if that's a yes.
do you feel you would have the confidence to reach out to that person that you've just recognized and be able to ask them in a clear and honest way, I want to know, how are you getting on? And be the person who kind of reaches in and has that thing. So that's kind of the two questions, because I suppose kind of what I want to try and do as we finish off this session with Mentality Meets is leave you with a challenge, therefore, before this weekend, is to try and reach out and make that connection. Okay.
And I think I would just add that people often worry about, am I going to say the right thing or the wrong thing, or am I going to make it worse or not? Absolutely, you won't make it any worse. If they're having a shit time, they're having a shit time, you know, but reaching out, you can make it a whole lot better. Like, no one gives you the script. You don't have to have the right words, and sometimes all it is a hug. I know we can't do that right now, or, you know, but just to ask, don't worry about whether you've got the right words or not. And even just say, I don't think I might not have the right words. I don't know what to say, but I just want you to know that I'm here. And yeah.
No, absolutely brilliant. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, we are on our 3:30 time button, which means that the official ending of Mentality Meets is right here, right now. So what I need to do at this point is I need to say, this has been Laura Hearn. I have been Peter Larkum. You guys have been absolutely awesome. Thank you for your feedback through these sessions. I hope it's been helpful and useful. This has been Mentality Meets. Thank you. Hang on, I need to do that again. That was a rubbish ending. Thank you. Take care. God bless. And bye now. And there's
thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being there. Have a lovely weekend.
No, thank you so much. And so, Laura, kind of people can stick around or kind of head away if they need to. But I just want to say thank you. Yeah, are there any questions out there from the floor? So if you do have any questions, do feel free to ask some questions.
It's really lovely to appreciate everyone sort of being here. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks for what I want to just say is the honesty and the reality of it. And
actually, Emmy's asked a good question.
Oh, go on, Emmy.
Is acceptance of imperfection a big part of recovery? Yeah, yeah, for sure. I have to be really tolerant of myself and accepting of myself. That doesn't always work every day, but I do think that there's a lot, especially around body image and and who you are as a human being, not feeling enough. Like, I often used to need to get validation from outside sources, but I couldn't give it to myself. And I realized, actually, like I said about the script, not everyone can give you, you know, sometimes you want someone to say, but I want you to say that to me and make me feel better. But actually, I've had to really learn to accept that I need to be able to say that to myself, and not strive to be something like someone else next door, like comparing myself. So I'm cool with not being everyone's cup of tea. I used to always want to be everyone's cup of tea, but no one is, and I'm okay with that, as long as, you know, I have a you know, a circle, a small circle of people who accept me as I am. I'd much rather be authentic in a relationship than having to put on something that I'm not.
And Dave's got a question here which says, do you have a conscious narrative voice in your head like JD in Scrubs?
Oh my god, I haven't watched Scrubs.
So basically, it's kind of, do you have a kind of story going on that's basically kind of telling you what's happening around you, and kind of that conscious narrative?
No, my god, I probably did, but I think if I had that now, I'd feel pretty chaotic in my head. I do have, you know, I'm always having, like, we all have a narrative in our head, and I'm always sort of questioning, is that the real, is that my healthy self, my 18 sort of self? But I don't constantly question it now, because most of the time my healthy self is in front. But yeah, I guess I have a conscious voice. Yeah, I do have this sort of dialogue, but most of the time it's more free thinking, and it's not, I guess, if I think about the head, before I sort of went to America, like, the whole of my head was consumed around very negative thinking about myself and about the world, and now I have a lot more space to be a nicer sister, a girlfriend, daughter, you know, like I was not a very nice human being to be around, because everything, my narrative was consuming. But now I have, you know, more space to actually give to others. And that's when I talked about, I wrote a quick post called sort of Kindness Begins at Home. If you're not really, I know the theme is kindness this week, or Mental Health Awareness Week, which is quite wishy-washy, but I really thought, you know, I thought back to that oxygen mask analogy on a plane, that if you don't put your own, you know, you have to be called selfish, but if you don't put that mask on yourself, then you're pretty redundant to anyone else around you. So, and I've had to realize, you know, in the last few weeks, I need to be a bit kinder to myself and my own needs, in order to be that available again for other people in my life that I love and care about.
No, brilliant. Andy's question on here says, how often do you hear the response "really busy" to the question of how are you? And since when did busy mean I'm feeling something? And how often is busy kind of just that emptiness?
There's so much pressure on to say you're busy, or like be productive, or be doing something, like just because you have to like keep up with the Joneses. Oh yeah, I'm really busy, I've got loads going on. When
that's the other story that I found really frustrating about this lockdown period, is the amount of people who are going, oh, what's your productivity? You should be able to read 27 books and kind of garden 47 people's houses and kind of, do you know what I mean? It's like just a reality of, hang on, for a lot of people, myself included, just the reality of getting from one day to the next is a winner. And I have no problem with opening up a bottle of Prosecco on a Wednesday just to congratulate myself for getting to Wednesday, you know? Kind of Prosecco now doesn't need a
reason. No, there's Wednesday every day, isn't there? But busyness is also about priority. Are you really too busy to do something you really want to do? You would prioritize that, wouldn't you? If there was, so I think busyness is just it's a strange, it's a kind of a word that doesn't really mean anything, but can mean so much.
And I just want to finish this off with a message from Linda Kent, who says, for everyone struggling, please listen to Laura. As I can tell you, she's come through a very long journey, and where she is now is only just short of a miracle. First-hand knowledge. Thank you so much, Laura, for your honesty.
I'll let you introduce the secret. That's my mum, so she might be a bit biased. She might be slightly biased, but hey, I gave her the link today. I was like, "Oh, Mum, you're at home. Cup of tea this afternoon. Do you want to say?" But she, of all people, does know how horrendous it has been.
Yeah, and I think for me, just even though you're saying kind of with your mum, it's that nothing short of a miracle. And so, Laura, I just want to take this.
I'm grateful.
I want to take this moment and just say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today. And this is where I'm going to bring it to an official ending. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Okay. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye now.